Good afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns back at work out in Berea, getting ready to head out to Las Vegas for a road game against the Raiders. Today, Kevin Stefanski asked about going against Max Crosby, one of the best defensive and pass rushers in the NFL with a patchwork offensive line, as well as would solving the protection issues get this offense going?
I think playing good offensive football really takes all 11 doing their job, us as coaches putting those guys in position. I wouldn't say it's one thing, it's just protection. We have to be better, and better is efficient in everything we're doing, and then finding explosives as well.
Max Crosby, what makes him special, and how different was he with that high ankle last week?
Not much different to me. I mean, his motor's unbelievable. He rarely comes off the field, but just gives you everything he has. He's long, he's athletic, he plays through the whistle. He's a great player.
Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Tim, I know you did a fact or fiction. So Browns offensive line, the team's biggest liability, fact or fiction?
I said it's a fact right now. I mean, you can look at really everything on the offense as an issue. I mean, you can look at the offense through 3 games and basically say that not one player has been consistently good through 3 games. And I think part of it starts with the offensive line. I know Deshaun Watson has gotten sacked a lot, 16 times. He's gotten hit almost 50 times already this season. So, excuse me, 440, I'm sorry. But, when you look at the offensive line, we knew there were concerns about it. The fact that, we didn't know who was going to start at left tackle until just before the opener, with Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin still working their way back from injuries. DeJuan Jones still looks like he's laboring a little bit. They had to take him out of the game, the Giants game in the second half, and bring it back in because James Hudson got hurt. And this was before losing Wyatt Teller, who, by the way, is one of only 2 Browns offensive linemen with a PFF grade of over 60 at this point in the season. I know you can take PFF grade with a grain of salt sometimes, but he's been arguably their best offensive lineman by those metrics, and now he's out for 4 weeks. So it's just a mess up front. And even in the Giants game, the most stable part of that group, the interior, just got dominated by Dexter Lawrence in that front and all those different stunts. So really, they have not been able to protect Deshaun Watson. They have not really been able to run the football. And that was a Giants defense that was one of the worst in the NFL at run defense. And they couldn't run the football against them for most of the game. So, obviously, what Kevin said about, you need all 11 guys on offense to get going, that obviously is important. It's like a car. You need all the pieces to get it working, but it really starts and ends with offensive line play. And that group, whatever 5 out there, simply has to be better.
So Deshaun Watson also met with media today, talked about what if he could put his finger on one thing, that if he could get one thing going, it would help this offense get on track. Here was his answer.
Just continue to just get on the same page with the receivers. To the normal eye of a fan, it might seem like a pass was offered, things like that. I'm the type of player and quarterback that I can adjust and make every throw, regardless if we're not on the same page. But I think just continue to get on the same page in certain situations. I think that's the biggest thing. So if that's a little extra film work with the receivers, extra walkthroughs, just communicating on the sideline a little bit better, all those things.
So again, Tim, from that Fact or Fiction article, Deshaun Watson most deserving of most of the blame for the offense. Fact or fiction?
I say fiction, and I know the advanced stats against him look bad. I think from someone, I think it was Austin Gale from The Ringer, who had the stat that Deshaun Watson has the worst expected points added of any Browns starting quarterback through 3 games since 2000, I believe it was. So yeah, he hasn't played well, but again, neither has really anybody else on the offense. Amari Cooper finally had his first good game of the season in week 3 after 2 weeks of bad drops. The running game really hadn't gotten going through 3 weeks. They've had David Njoku for 1 week. So it's just, and the offensive line really has had 2 games where Deshaun Watson has been sacked 14 of 16 times. He only got sacked twice in Jacksonville, which was a nice improvement, but it feels like that hasn't been the case. And part of it also, I think you also have to go to coaching. I look at that Giants game. Yeah, the Giants blitzed more than expected, but it took way too long, I thought, for the Browns to change things up, to get plays to the perimeter, to run some screens, to try and find ways to mitigate the Giants' pass rush. And it took way too long in that game for them to really adjust and figure things out and do those sorts of things. And so bottom line, like I said, pretty much everything's got to be better. It starts with the quarterback. He's got to be more decisive, can't hold on to the football. He's got to not hitch. He's just got to let it go, let it rip. But in general, this whole offense is just not performing well. They haven't hit 300 yards in a game. They haven't hit 20 points in a game. You're not going to win a lot of games in the NFL if you're not scoring 20-plus points, and that's a big reason why the Browns are 1-2.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's been the coaching, it's been the quarterback, it's been the line. They haven't run the ball. They didn't try to run the ball. You know, the running numbers are skewed because they're running late after the game is I won't say it's been decided, but they aren't running early in the games. So I'm with you. So the Browns did make some moves. They have signed offensive tackle Jermaine Ifedi to the roster from the practice squad. They placed Wyatt Teller on injured list. They also signed Sebastian Gutierrez, 6'6", 308 pounds, a tackle. Offensive tackle Ricky Lee III, 6'5", 300 pounds. Neither of those guys have played anything other than special teams. They also signed Ellerson Smith to the practice squad. You see they released a linebacker as well. So this is a list of guys that were not expected to and did not practice today. So Conklin, hamstring; Ford, knee; Garrett, wow, foot; Achilles, thigh. I mean, is there anything that doesn't hurt, Miles? Jordan Hicks, ribs, elbow; David Njoku, ankle; Pierre Strong, hamstring; Jedrick Wills, knee. And then another note, which this is a step in the right direction: David Njoku not ruled out for the Raiders game. Kevin Stefanski said he will do some work, just not today. So you look at that, and we're running out of next men as the next man up pretty early in this season.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many people out there in the world who can play NFL offensive line out there. So it's just in some ways still a continuation of last season, the issues that they had on the offensive line. Again, they were down to their fourth and fifth tackles. And, you know, just with Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin, they're still rehabbing. It's just taken longer than I think any of us expected for them to be on the field. And you have to credit DeJuan Jones for being out there despite his injury issues. Obviously, that knee looked like it was limiting him against the Giants. But it's just been, I mean, you look at some of the issues on offense, the offensive line, you're looking at 2/5 of your ideal starting line not in practice, and your third starting tackle not 100%. Not to mention one of your best offensive linemen, your right guard, out for at least 4 weeks. He just got put on injured reserve. So I mean, this offensive line this is a regrettable pun I'm going to use, but they're in a world of hurt right now. And I mean, you could say next man up all you want, but the bottom line is there's only so many guys out there that you can sign and bring in and help you. It's down to the veterans on this team, down to like Joel Bitonio, Ethan Posick, Nick Harris, if they have to put him in for extended time playing well. Zach Zinter, the third-round pick, who I thought played pretty solid when he came in for Wyatt Teller. He's got to continue. He's got to really elevate himself, and I think he's got a good chance to do that. But at some point, you know, these guys just got to find that level, and they got to find that physicality as a group, because it felt like against that Giants game, they weren't physical enough to handle that pressure. And by the end of the game, they eventually got there, but they have to start the game and continue to play it with that physicality, and it doesn't matter who's out there.
Yeah, and I'm with I understand what you're saying. It also falls on Kevin Stefanski. You got to look at what you have out there. These guys aren't going to miraculously be any better than they're. You should know what you have with the offensive line. It's your job to design something around that that can work effectively and get you points. Tim Bielik from cleveland.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out on the other side of the break. We head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones. Diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Guys, maybe I can make a suggestion for our Pecan Coach of the Year that he can try doing something, anything to make us look better. Maybe he can change quarterback, quit calling the plays, run the ball more, change somebody on the offensive line, quit, stay home, don't go to the game. Anything, do something. We're 1-2 and we look terrible and we're not getting any better. He's got to do something. He is the coach. Okay, guys, thanks.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tim, good to hear from the Kevin Stefanski fan club out in Rochester. I can't believe I'm going to agree with Jim or Carl from Rochester, but they do have to do something different. The offensive line, they can't do much different there. You're running out of bodies. You're starting to get practice squad guys. It's up to them to design the offense. Maybe it is Ken Dorsey calling plays. You got to look at everything because you're almost a quarter through the season. Four games is close to the 25. The quarter mark. This offense has been awful. It deserves to be among the worst in football, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, when you even look at the advanced numbers, I'm looking right now at one of the advanced numbers from the site rbsdm.com. They do a lot of advanced numbers. The Browns right now rank dead last in expected points added per play. So that's every time you go out, that's basically a measure of how well you're doing on offense. They're at negative 0.225 points per play. So essentially every 4 points, they're minus 1 point. And that's awful no matter how you slice it. So, I mean, again, that's dead last in the NFL. That's worse than the Titans. That's worse than the Panthers. That's worse than the Broncos. And that's worse than the Miami Dolphins, who might have to start Tim Boyle at some point, depending on the health of Tua Tagovailoa out there. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. Kevin Stefanski's got to do something. I don't know what that something is. I don't know if you're going to suddenly switch play callers after 3 games. You're certainly not going to make a quarterback change. That feels more like a last resort type of situation. But like I said, in the Giants game, it felt like it took them way too long to really make an adjustment and find something that worked. Like I said, the screen game, that's something we've seen from Kevin Stefanski way back in the beginning of when he was a coach. They were one of the best screen teams. I know you're down on offensive line bodies, but you still got to try something. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I mean, that's the literal definition of insanity. Because when you look at the numbers, they're 25th in points, 31st in yards, and dead last in net yards per passing attempt at 3.5. So they're actually gaining more yards per run than they are per pass attempt. So bottom line, they have to change something, because right now it just looked like nothing's working. They're getting in too many long third downs, and I don't know what the fix is this week, but something's got to change, especially because you played these next 3 games on the road.
So Deshaun Watson today also asked about the perception from some in the media that he's not seeing the field very well, especially as it relates to that 4th and 1 play that they didn't convert against the Giants.
Because other people are not in the film room, so that not everyone know exactly what the read was. That was a decoy, so that's the difference. Everyone can pause the tape and say, hey, he should have thrown it here, should have thrown it here. Every quarterback deal with that. So if you choose one play and that's the play out of the whole game that everyone is calling, then so be it. It is what it is. No one's in those film rooms. No one is making those decisions. So I go based off of what is Ken Dorsey and Kevin Stefanski is saying. And, on that decision, they made a good play. They got jammed up on the slant. That's what we did it. The previous time when we scored a touchdown, I did the same as that read, and I hit Jerry. So, did I see it wrong then? So for me, it's just, like I said before, it's just I go based off what Kevin and Ken is making those decisions and how they're grading me on that.
Again, That's probably very fair. But the thing I would say is, then you better simplify the plays because the ball needs to come out quicker. Because you clearly 8 sacks, 6 sacks in 2 of your 3 games. That's unacceptable. That you're going to end up winning 6 games like some of the national people were predicting.
Yeah, either quick plays or bootlegs. Get Deshaun Watson on the move right away off the snap, roll the pocket. You got to do certain things to help your quarterback out. And it feels like they're trying way too much of the straight drop back game, really playing against their offensive line and what they're struggling with right now. And that's just basic protection, especially against these blitzes. And you got to, and the Browns have struggled against the blitz. I think everybody by now has seen that, and they got to figure out, how do you adjust to it? How do you prepare to be better against the blitz? And that's got to be in the minds of them because the way they were talking after the Giants game, it sounded like they were surprised by how aggressive the Giants were for blitzing. And you basically just have to be like, okay, you have to assume that every team you play for the next several weeks is just going to blitz relentlessly. They're going to blitz above their average, for example. They're going to just keep blitzing because they know it works. And so the whole week, I think Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson, Ken Dorsey have to sit down and be like, okay, we have a banged up offensive line. What can we do to beat the blitz more consistently? How do we beat the blitz more often to the point where teams have to start backing off? Is it a running thing? Is it moving the pocket? Is it bootlegs? Is it throwback screens? What is it? Because what they're doing right now, again, isn't working.
Well, here's another number that will kind of show you just how much the offense has struggled. 54.4%, so over almost 55% of Cleveland's set of downs have reached third down. That's 27th in the league. 36.7%. Third and long, meaning 7+ yards. That's the worst rate in the league. On third downs, Browns are a league worst. 8 of 43. They're not even 20%, not even 19%. Third and longs. So that's 7 or more yards. 4 of 29, so not even 14%. One thing that factors into all of that is they lead the league in penalties. You're not going to win any games doing that. None. You will continue to lose football games if you convert third downs at that level in the NFL.
100%. I mean, it's just about playing discipline and those sorts of things. And obviously, in the Dallas game, those penalties just really crushed them before they even had a chance, and that's a Cowboys defense when they're at their best when you're playing behind the sticks. And we saw in the last 2 games with the Saints and the Ravens that they were able to run the football and have third and shorts and consistently keep burning them. And I think for the Browns, I can't remember where I saw this, so I apologize who I'm forgetting to give credit to for this, but I thought I saw like on first down they have the highest percentage of quick shotgun passes on first down. And if those are incomplete, you're automatically at 2nd and 10. You're off the success rate track. And they're not running enough on first down. They're not just not having enough success on first down to make 2nd and short, 3rd and short. And again, you look at those numbers, the highest 3rd and long rate in the NFL right now, more than a third of the time it's 3rd and 7, or more. And again, 8 third downs converted for the entire season. That's not good. And again, those two, I think, go very hand in hand. If you're not going to make a living at any level of football if you're constantly in 3rd and long. So the Browns need to figure out, if we're not going to get the first down 2 plays, how can we make it so it's 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, even 3rd and 3 or 4, because those are much more makeable. But it seems like every time we've watched every drive the Browns have been on has been 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 12. So they got to make those 3rd and shorts, and they got to do it far more frequently. That's got to be one of the first fixes they make.
So Zach Zinter filled in for Wyatt Teller and passed the eye test without question, and it backs up with some of the numbers. So was facing Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, 2 really good pass rushers, allowed only 1 quarterback hurry. You could see him blocking well in space. That's kind of important for a young guard. And 2 pancakes on 1 drive. I'm a lot more confident in Zach Zinter than I am whomever we're trotting out in their current state at tackle.
Yeah, I think there's reason to be. I mean, Zach Zinter, I think we were talking about him after the draft. I didn't think there was anything wrong with him from a draft perspective as far as his player evaluation. There was a lot to like about him. I just was concerned, how he was going to heal up from the broken leg. And were you going to have to throw him out there, too early? And unfortunately for the Browns, they're going to have to. But to his credit, like you said, I mean, those are good numbers. You only give up one quarterback hurry against a Giants defense that was as relentless as it was a week ago, being thrown in when you're not expected to play a lot, if at all, other than be, a piece in a jumbo package like we saw against Jacksonville. And Zinter held his own, and you ultimately drafted him to be a future starter in this offensive line. And now you kind of get a chance with Wyatt Teller being on the injured reserve out for the next 4 weeks to kind of see what that looks like. So Zach Zinter can get an idea of what it's like to play consistently at the NFL level, to be a starter, to go up against these great defensive fronts, because he's got Christian Wilkins this week. Next week, he's got Washington's elite front. The week after, Philadelphia. Then you got Cincinnati and Baltimore potentially. So it's a great test to see if this young man can play, and if he can, how good can he be? Can he be the eventual heir to Joel Bitonio or Wyatt Teller in the middle? And that's what, if you're the Browns, you hope that's what he can be. I mean, you're basing off one half. He's got something good to build off of.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take one more time out on the side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also take a look at some of the matchups that the Browns will be facing against the Raiders. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is a disappointed Rico. Now, let me start off by saying our O-line is in complete shambles. Disarray, crappy. Whatever negative adjective you want to insert, they absolutely deserve it. Secondly, Watson was brought here to uplift the bad plays and turn it into good ones. I mean, I've been defending this guy since day one, but my defense of him is wavering. Also, the defense surrendering 21 points at home, no less, to this Giants team is inexcusable. I mean, we're now 0-2 at home, which is embarrassing. I'm sorry, but can someone please rip that play sheet away from Stefanski and let Dorsey cook? Why is he here? For what? I don't want to hear anyone talking about collaboration. That's complete and utter nonsense. Let your coordinators coordinate. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tim, we've already talked a little bit about Watson, a little bit about Dorsey and the play calling. The defense, I thought, was really disappointing. They let two drives that were really long and time-consuming. I didn't think they'd allow 5 of those in a season, and they allowed 2 of them against a team that's just not. I mean, Malik Neighbors was the one guy you couldn't let beat you, and he beat you.
Yeah, and I think going back to what I was saying about Kevin Stefanski, it feels like Jim Schwartz, in some ways, he's taken too long to make adjustments, and waiting that long to put Denzel Ward exclusively on Malik Neighbors kind of cost him the game. I think you do have to give. I was even tweeting in the game, though. It felt like the Giants played a completely perfect game in the first half. That after the first 11 seconds and after the interception, which was over the Ronnie Hickman pick, which was overruled by a Greg Newsome roughing the passer call. I mean, that completely turned the game around, and the defense took way too long to recover. But the bottom line is, I think with the Browns, you can say that about both sides of the unit. The coaching hasn't been good enough the first 3 weeks. They haven't. They struggled. The defense wasn't good enough at the start against the Cowboys, and the offense just really has never. They haven't made adjustments fast enough, and they really haven't done much to help Deshaun Watson or really establish anything. They haven't tried outside of the Jacksonville game to establish the run, and it took way too long against the Giants to make the adjustments that needed to be made to get the job done. Bottom line, it's hard to look at anybody on both sides of the ball outside of maybe Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and say that through 3 games they have been at the standard that you would expect the Browns team that has been that went to the playoffs last season, you would expect them to be, because again, 1-2, I know there's a lot of good teams out there that are 1-2, but you had an opportunity to jump on a Giants team, and not only do you let them back in the game, but you let them really control it for the vast majority of it. And when they gave you chances to get back into the game, you didn't take advantage of it. Now you got to go on the road for 3 straight where they were below 500. It's a tall order, but this is a team that just simply, to a man, has to figure it out and simply has to be better across the board.
So, longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi talked about the Raiders and the Raiders game.
They're very beatable, even though they beat the Ravens. They're one win, but they're one of the worst run defense teams. Here we go again. They keep playing teams that are inefficient against the run, so they have to run the ball. And I say take those 2 tight ends off the field, the guys they had out there, Blake Whiteheart and Jeff Swain. Put the big guys back on the field. And smash mouth the ball, and hopefully that gives you a lead. And then, in the meantime, Watson gets a little more accurate, makes it a little more better decisions than wrong ones.
So, Tim, I know you wrote an article, 3 things to know about the Browns' Week 4 opponent, the Raiders. So, number 1, Max Crosby isn't quite himself, but he's still a problem. Number 2, Davante Adams, some help at receiver this year, and the Raiders looked like 2 different teams the last 2 weeks. So take us through that.
Well, let's start with number 1. We already talked a little bit about Max Crosby. Obviously, going through a high ankle sprain, but considering the issues the Browns have had on the offensive line, the last thing they can do is treat Max Crosby like he's anything but 100%, because he's arguably the most relentless pass rusher in the NFL. People just don't. Maybe he doesn't get the respect he deserves because the Vegas Raiders haven't quite been a good team the last few years, but Crosby's really good. So even though he wasn't 100% against the Panthers last week, you got to prepare and you got to go out there every single snap if you're, the offensive line, preparing for 100% Max Crosby. You can't do anything else because he's earned that kind of respect. Number 2 is going down to the offense. Davante Adams, one of the best receivers in the NFL, he finally got some help this year. The Raiders, 1 pick after the Broncos drafted Bo Nix. They take Brock Bowers, who I really loved out of Georgia, and he's having a great season so far. 197 receiving yards through 3 games. He had 98 on 9 catches against Baltimore. So now that's another really good receiver in Davante Adams, who you got to watch out for. But whoever's at quarterback for the Raiders, likely Gardner Minshew, they now have 2 good weapons to throw out there. So you got to be prepared to defend Brock Bowers because he's performing kind of at a level similar to what we saw from Sam Laporta. And number 3, I'm going to I said this line in here, but kind of what Eminem would say, with the real Las Vegas Raiders, please stand up. Because we saw in week 2, they went into Baltimore. The Ravens blew a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter to the Raiders in week 2 and lost that game. But then the Raiders turned around 1 week later, and then they got embarrassed at home by the Carolina Panthers. I know that was that ended as a 14-point loss, but at one point they were down by 26 points to a team that just benched the number 1 overall pick in Bryce Young. I think Jimmy Johnson was on Fox ripping, Carolina ownership, how well things haven't gone. People were talking, is this one of the worst teams ever? Could the Panthers go 0-17? And then they let Andy Dalton just cook them to the tune of 319 yards, 3 touchdowns. They let Chuba Hubbard go for 114 yards. And they got completely embarrassed by the team that I think we all thought, the team that was the worst team in the NFL last season, certainly we all thought was going to be the worst team in the NFL again. So who are the real Las Vegas Raiders? I have no idea who they are, and we'll probably get an answer one way or another this Sunday.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
Tim Bielik, make sure you check him out. The Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Always really insightful stuff on the Browns and the rest of the NFL. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Jake Burns from BrownsFilmBreakdown.com. He'll have a couple of film breakdowns straight ahead. That's on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K-12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. Sports for CLE continues. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, this is TJ from Tampa. Horrible game yesterday. Hey, I'm tired, sick and tired of our O-line being blamed for Watson's play. Joe Flacco last year took the same exact team with less of an O-line, and he moved them up and down the field game after game. It's time for a change. Let's quit making excuses for the guy. Also, how many times are we going to give the ball to Jerome Ford on first down where he gets no yards or 1 yard? It's killing us. We do the same thing every single week.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jake Burns from Browns FilmBreakdown.com. Jake, I get the Joe Flacco, the legend of Joe Flacco. Different year, different scheme. I get the offensive line was beat up. It's more beat up, and they're asking him to do some different things. I think that's what's kind of being a little lost.
Yeah, I don't think they're replicating exactly what they were doing with Joe Flacco. I certainly think that the idea this offseason that they brought in a bunch of changes to the way they approach offensive football, I think has been on display so far this year. So to me, it's I just think they're early in the process. It's hard to tell people to remain confident that it's going to work itself out, but I certainly think that it's early in the process. I have concerns on my own end about their ability to make this cohesively work, especially considering I feel like it's really disjointed and it's something Kevin's not really that natural at. So I like I said, there can be some minor changes that you can make, but there's no doubt people have to start playing better. I think they need to start calling things a little bit better, and I think the elements around Deshaun Watson are certainly, as we'll talk about, not necessarily helping solve the problem consistently.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think you can point to one specific thing. I think it's disjointed is a really – I feel that way when I watch this offense. They aren't quite sure of their identity, and it's almost like they're not sure how they want to get there.
No, they don't. I've kind of said it's like – somebody trying to learn a new language and they were just handed a DVD from Rosetta Stone and said, good luck. Like they're in a European country trying to figure it out, and they're reading the book about what the words mean and being very rigid about it. And they all feel out of place. There's no cohesiveness to what they're doing. The guys, I think for the most part, are trying to do what they're asked, but it doesn't seem natural to almost anybody. And even the play caller in and of itself, who I think is built and backboned in a completely different structure of offense. So it is, and again, it's multiple people. Quarterback hasn't been good enough. One play, the offensive line doesn't hold up the way it needs to. One play, the wide receiver drops a well-thrown ball. One play, they don't plan, give the quarterback any options within the scheme to get rid of the football against heavy blitz. You can't become the worst offense in the NFL if it was one person. If it was solving it with one person, that's easy. And, I think the case study is what's gone on down there in Carolina when they take out Bryce Young, plug in Andy Dalton, and he throws for north of 300 yards, and they score 35 points. I think if it were that easy, the elements around the quarterback were playing better, then it's a different discussion. But right now, it's everybody. It's a potpourri of the smelliest variety right now because it's like different plays, different issues. And when that is the case, it feels like an avalanche that you just can't really stop and put it back on top of the mountain. It's overwhelming. And I feel like that's where they're at right now, where there's a little bit of a lack of belief in what they're doing. And then when you pair that lack of belief with what they're doing, that they can get the job done, then you start to see this product we're seeing on the field where it's just a breakdown after breakdown happening.
So this is interesting as well. Rate of drives to reach the red zone or score a touchdown prior to reaching the red zone. Eagles are tops in the NFL better than 53%. Commanders at almost 53%. Saints, 48.4%, bottom part of the league. Panthers, who you mentioned. Raiders, who the Browns face. Bears, and Browns are dead last, 13.5%. That just kind of adds to what we are saying. They're just not moving the football.
Yeah, it's I think they're reaching third down too often. I believe I have not looked at how many third downs they converted there against, in week 3 against the Giants, but I have to think that they were 4 for 29 coming into it. If they reached double digits in third downs successfully converted this year, no, they haven't. So you're talking about north of 40 third downs, and you're maybe 8 of 40 at this point. That's how ugly it's been. And then you talk about, lack of explosive plays. They're finding third down a lot. They're not having explosive plays happen that eliminate the, need to get to third down, where you could say, well, they're not even getting to third down that much, so the rate doesn't matter. No, they're finding third down at a really large clip too. So first and second down efficiency has not been good enough. There's so many times they've had a decent first down play, then they go backward, either a false start or a negative rush or something of the like, and it just puts them back inside the worst possible scenario, which is third and long for them right now, because the feeling of them converting a third and long feels like one of the hardest tasks you can ask any team in the NFL to do just about anything right now. So, yeah, you could have a lot of offensive conversations, and most of them will sound the way it sounds right now, where it's collectively a bleak outlook.
Yeah, and the penalties certainly don't help. Most penalized team in the NFL. This is interesting as well. Take us through what you make of this. Deshaun Watson has worked with an empty backfield on 36 dropbacks this season, 12 more times than any other quarterback in football on those plays. 15 to 27, 125 yards, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks, and a passer rating under 37. So you would think that would be different.
Yeah, he had a lot of success in empty in his days back in Houston, and I understand why they're doing it. Last year they did a little bit of that empty stuff with Flacco, where they're putting 2 tight ends. It's not 2 tight ends; it's a tight end in a back. You put him in a wing, and you do that. It is empty by definition, but it's not really empty, because what you're doing is you're putting those guys on the edge at the wing to slow down speed rushers upfield. The Browns are trying to unlock drop back passing for their offense, and on third downs, they use that pathway to create ways to slow down edge rushers from being upfield fast. So it's not like they're getting 5 routes out every single time. Those routes do release, but they're usually late release. They chip, release to the flat or on a drag or something of the like. But that statistic is true. They have not been productive out of empty, but I think you would look at anything they've done. Their play action numbers are abysmal right now too. I mean, they're using play action as much as anyone. I think they're 7th in the NFL in play action usage, and they're not getting anything from that. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure nothing against what Bill is doing there, but you could pick just about any stat the Browns offense is throwing out there right now, and you could come up with something that could create a tweet to garner attention about how bad it's been. It's really not difficult. So, I mean, I don't blame Kevin for going that route. It was a successful part of what they did with Joe Flacco and helping them create some, layered concepts that allowed them to get the ball to David Njoku in the flat and underneath and create yardage, and it worked. But it's clear that teams have adapted to that. They've not given those guys underneath the space they used to have, and they're still forcing now the quarterback, instead of having that easy drop off, to get the football out in space and let a player like David or even Jerome Ford, think about that long catch Jerome Ford had against the Jets up the left sideline. That came from exactly the formation I'm talking about right here, which is empty by definition. You know, teams are taking that away. They're getting a little tighter to it, not allowing that, tackle in space scenario to happen, and say, hey, we'll let you throw downfield. We're not necessarily going to let you sit here and hang out in the pocket and check it down to somebody who can make 8 to 10 yards after the catch happens. So teams have adapted to it. They've taken it away, and I think you're seeing the byproduct of that result for the most part. Not every drop back is coming from that empty sort of wing check stuff, but when they go empty, they're not really pushing the ball downfield. If it's like a traditional empty 5 wide, spacing concept, it's usually early down, quick throw stuff that they like to do, and those are not going to yield a ton of yards because they're just trying to take advantage of horizontal stretch underneath and get 4 or 5. It's like an extension of the run game, essentially. So I hope that clears it up. But like, that data is not good, but I don't think any data is very good right now for this offense.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Jake Burns from BrownsFilmBreakdown.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Plus, Jake will have one of his film breakdowns. We got 2 of them this week. This one, we'll take a look at some of the sacks allowed by the Browns offense against the Giants. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby tins. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with Jake Burns from BrownsFilmBreakdown.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. It's Wednesday, so I'm moving on to the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'm watching some of their games, and obviously I'm extremely concerned with Mad Max Crosby. I also saw that he's dealing with an ankle injury, so he might not be 100% going into the game, but his presence alone will still help their defense. How would you go about trying to contain him? I hope Stefanski treats him like other teams treat Myles Garrett by sending double teams his way, chipping him, screen game, quick outs for Watson, hot reads for Watson. I just don't want to see Max go one-on-one with Jed or Jones for a majority of the game. What do you think? How are the Browns going to go about defending Max Crosby? Thanks.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jake, when we're going to get into some of the sacks, but Crosby's a problem for everybody. And especially, when you're banged up like the Browns will be on the line.
Yeah, he's always a concern. Kind of like Miles, he's dealing with something with the feet. I mean, you have to give him attention all the time, not just in the pass game, the run game. He can be a destructive piece of that stuff up front too. He can take away counters and power, and he can set the edge in a very unique way. So I expect them to try to get a second body on him. He's a 4 hands-on type of player, similar to last week. Really, the Giants had 2 edge rushers between Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns is the one that really hurt them. Those guys are tough. Those are really unique challenges and what made the day tough for the Browns. Now, the Raiders don't have a secondary edge player anywhere near as talented as Thibodeau is as a compliment to Burns, but they do have another Dexter Lawrence level talent, Christian Wilkins inside, who will create a problem as Wyatt Teller's gone off to IR. So you're going to have probably Zach Zinter, the rookie, starting in there. So yeah, you're trying to figure it out a little bit, trying to piece it together. I certainly think that Crosby is going to be a difficult block, as he always is. But like the caller said, a little bit the same as Miles. You just kind of have to hope that that foot takes a little bit of the juice out of whatever he usually brings to the table, and you can find a way to get creative and block him. And I think the Browns also under the radar a little bit because the collective was so struggled last week. But they did some nice job in screen game too that could have popped in. A couple of them did in the second half. So I think that they'll be active with those again.
All right. So this is interesting as well. We heard a lot about motion, and you alluded to the drop back play action rate. Browns are 31st in motion, so second to last in the NFL. 15th play action rate, kind of in the middle, week to week. And you alluded to it. Play action is something that Kevin Stefanski's known for. So again, they're trying to figure out what works with this scheme and how they piece it together, and it's not going well through 3 weeks. I think it's the only way you can say it.
Yeah, no, it isn't. I mean, again, Kevin's living in a different world than I think he's accustomed to being in. There's a train of thought that maybe he needs to revert back to what he's been best at and what some of the guys who have been around the franchise for a while, invested in this place, are best at. Maybe they need to revert to some of those things, but I mean, they haven't totally abandoned all of Kevin's old school principles, bootleg stuff, all of that. It's still there. The frequency is less. So I don't know. Maybe there's the ability to try to dive back into that world, and Kevin's most comfortable doing it. Otherwise, I do think there's a chance you see a potential change in play caller where Kevin would like to give Ken maybe a little more ownership of things. But Yeah, like that piece of data that was just shared, it's bleak wherever you really push it. I mean, they have to just run. This sounds so elementary, but you just have to find some successful plays. I mean, they're searching for plays that can get them in the positive, consistently in the positive. And when you're doing that, sort of at a baseline level, 3-4 weeks into a season, you're a little concerned about identifying and understanding what your guys do best. So, yeah, I mean, I think again we can look at so many elements and say the same thing over and over again, but I'm trying to create ways for people to understand. Like they have still some elements of what Kevin has done, but he's certainly taken a deeper dive into worlds that are driven by guys he brought to surround him, and Ken Dorsey, and certainly in Tommy Rees and Nick Charlton, those guys they brought in. But at some point you start to realize, like, if the status quo maintains, we can't run this stuff. We're struggling. We're the worst offense in the NFL. Somebody will pay for that. Like, you can't be the worst offense in the NFL and everybody keeps their job, and I'm talking like that means somebody will pay. Is the quarterback going to lose his job? Is the head coach going to lose his job? Is the OC going to get fired after 1 year? There's a lot of things, but I do know that usually there's a bill that comes due to the table that somebody has to collect when you're the worst or at the bottom, with a healthy quarterback at the bottom of the NFL's offense rankings.
Yeah, and one more thing before we get to the film breakdown with the sacks allowed. This is sacks and turnovers allowed per game. And again, Titans are number one at 7.7, so that's sacks and turnovers. Browns 6.7. The Raiders, who they play, 5.7. So that is not a list you want to be on the top of, because especially with a new offense, you're putting that offense in a hole, because you've got second and long, third and long, and penalties compound it. They're the most penalized team on top of it. That's one of the reasons the offense looks so bad. They can't get into manageable downs and distances.
Yeah, it's like a 7-layer cake, and whatever you keep putting on top of that, or dip, that is every layer is worse. Every time you show me something, a tweet or a piece of data, it's like you keep taking punches and you don't know where they're coming from. But no, I mean, I feel like I break it down as closely as anybody, and nothing about the sequencing, the layering of plays. I mean, what makes offenses tough to cover is when a lot of what you do looks like a lot of the other stuff you do, and you're sort of like confused about, are they running? Are they throwing? Are they getting rid of the ball quick? Are they holding on to it and driving the football downfield a little bit? Like, those are the elements of what makes life challenging for defenses, and they're not doing any of that. Byproduct of, like you said, some penalties making it harder down in distances. You can't really do a lot of run pass mirroring stuff when you're in, longer down in distances. You need those to be short, 2nd and 3s and stuff like that. So when you don't have those opportunities as often as you need, you don't get the chance to hit the big explosives, and you're also putting yourself in the most vulnerable position, which is third and pass, anytime it's long, 7 or 8 yards plus. So yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. And I'm just like curious about what the ripcord is going to be for figuring out a way to try to get it back on track quicker than later, because, this is the 4th game. This is a quarter of the season we're talking about coming up right here.
Yeah, and again, like the worst thing is there's no easy answers to it. All right, Jake's really good with film breakdowns. He's from brownsfilmbreakdown.com. So we're going to take a look at a couple of the sacks. Take us through what you see when you break down the film of some of these sacks. And I think we did 2 or 3 of them, but take us through what you have here.
Yeah, so they were sacked 8 times. It's obviously a variety of responsibility on these plays, and we can run it and play through some of these, and I can kind of briefly talk about each one. But the Giants blitzed double the rate that they have blitzed the entire season in this particular game. So they were coming after the Browns on early downs, and when they got creative coming after the Browns, like, you have to have an answer. If you don't have an answer for some of these things, then you're going to struggle, obviously, to be able to come up with like quick solutions if you're not expecting blitz. Like on the left side, you're going to see Amari Cooper is the answer. You have to understand which side are these guys coming from. You're going to see 23 kind of loop around and come off the edge, and the Giants are going to get creative and take the safety sitting in the second level and wheel him out to the middle safety. It's man coverage everywhere. So that deep safety, the middle free, comes down and cuts off the drag route. Like Amari Cooper on the left side, you'll see There's nobody there to take away his inside slant that, some people call this a glance. It's fine. He's up there on the 40-yard line. He's the answer on the left side. You have to stare into the teeth of the blitz and then throw that football. So it's a quarterback processing thing on this one, because you have to understand they're bringing 6 people. You do not have enough people to block 6 people. So if they're coming from depth, you have to get this football out at the top of your drop. And his eyes are on the right side, kind of hanging on to Jerry Jeudy's route, not processing that the blitz came off the left edge, which is unblocked, and creating an overload on his left side. And look, if you see right there, Amari Cooper is your answer for a first down at the top of the screen. So that's the stuff you gotta be able to solve on the fly. Like, defenses are going to continue to try to change the picture on the quarterback pre-snap to post-snap. So he has to have an answer. He has to be quicker with it. So he's not always the one to blame. There's certainly other situations where offensive line are going to need to be better, right? They got to solve some things up there. I actually think one of the next few snaps that we'll take a look at, it is the offensive line that doesn't handle a twist stunt. They're just not handling stunt stuff as well as they need to. So if we want to fast forward, we can jump to the next one, past this one, and try to take a look at just one more. It's a great example of, like, it's not just on Watson all the time to be able to solve these things, right? So, and this is a good look from the quarterback's perspective, where, we have someone taking coverage look, dropping a guy deep middle. You can see the player running from the second level to the deep middle, that safety coming down to cut it. And then you have to get your eyes left side and be ready to throw that football to Amari, and his eyes don't find the left side. I'm not even sure he ever saw the edge blitzer coming off of the left side. So that's where the problem is. And Cooper's there on the left side of the screen as an open option. And then, the Browns also put themselves in some third and longs where they have an opportunity to throw the football downfield, and due to some stunt stuff up front, they don't handle it the right way. This is actually the second play here is an example of the scheme not having an answer. And then I think the third play, which is probably the one we should stop after, because these go a little long, but this play is where's Watson supposed to go with the ball? These are downfield routes that take some time to develop. At the time of arrival of a 6-man rush, where are you going with that football? We haven't had any in break from Amari down there at the bottom of the screen. Jerry Jeudy is on a corner settle. We call that a swirl route. So if he was continuing vertical there, you have an opportunity to maybe throw that ball out there with anticipation. But if he's stopping the route and he hasn't even come out close to the break point yet, where is this football going? Everything is covered up. This is a great example of everything getting covered up in a way that's okay, you need some quicker movement routes to provide your quarterback with an answer. So it's but like I said, the next one is an opportunity where they get a dig route open over the middle of the field on third and long, and the center guards don't handle a twist stunt, and one of the defensive tackles come free and sack the quarterback before the route can come open that is going to be wide open, Jerry Jeudy. So it's everybody, man. It's everybody on every snap, and you'll have 10 guys do the right thing and one guy doesn't. And it's just, the frustrating part is that it's so much easier when you can say, well, it's the left guard. If we just replace the left guard, or we just replace the quarterback, that will solve the issues. And I don't know that is an answer that's sitting there, something that's clean enough that's going to solve everything. And, there's obviously, you can get a little raise and a bump from maybe changing who's calling the plays, or maybe changing the quarterback, or raises the temperature in the room and everybody's hyper focused. I don't know. I don't have that answer. I'm not in there enough to know who's really helping or hurting in terms of off-field stuff, but I just know that the pressure is pretty real right now, that they need to get to solving this quickly.
Yeah, and when you talk about, processing, ball's not coming out quick enough. And it could be because it's a relatively new scheme for him as well.
It is. I mean, it's a lot of It's a lot of stuff that he's been comfortable with, though, in his career. Mm-hmm. The difference for Watson is he used to be a magician at getting out of the situations that we just watched on tape and creating big plays with his legs and big plays in out of structure moments as he leaves the pocket. But he used to be a better pocket passer. There is something there, and it's probably largely driven by not playing football for 2.5 years. He played 9 games over 3 years. He is not good enough when his pressure data, which we haven't looked at when pressure arrives, is bleak. And when teams are blitzing, it's even more bleak. Like, older you get, the less athletic you get, and you need to win with your mind more and your ability to process things out and be a step in front of the defense. And can pretty firmly say that right now he is a step behind the defense. So I'm always careful not to place holistic blame on one person unless it's obvious. I do think there are times when the surrounding talent is letting Watson down, but it's also fair to be like, hey, we paid $230 million. We thought this guy was going to be somebody who could overcome a bad offensive line or injuries or help our receivers become the best versions of themselves and be a guy who uplifts instead of a guy you can win with if everything's going perfectly. And the disappointing part is that he is a win-with quarterback, and there's sometimes where he's been bad enough that even if you have everybody playing around him, he is not winning with him. So he needs to be better. He's got to be better. And I think that everybody in that locker room is probably saying the same thing about pretty much everybody finding the field right now. They have to collectively be better.
Jake Burns from BrownsFilmBreakdown.com and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll take a look at how the Giants schemed up the Browns defense. Another film breakdown with Jake, Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jake Burns from BrownsFilmBreakdown.com. So Giants offense did a pretty good job, actually a really good job, of scheming up some things against the Browns defense. Jake, another film breakdown. Take us through what you saw when you looked at what the Giants did against this Browns D.
Yeah, they have a great feel, and it's not isolated to just this game, a great feel for stuff that is happening, around the scheme, coaching, how they're coaching it and how they're using it. So I just feel like quarterbacks and play callers know how to attack these guys. You're going to watch, this is after a holding penalty down here at the bottom of the screen. You're going to see Wan'Dale Robinson just run a slant against a disguised man coverage or a match coverage here that they know exactly what they're going to get. If they push a tight end up the middle of the field, that's going to take the 3-hook linebacker to run with him. And then it's just about winning inside, because they understand the principles the Browns run with, that Mike Backer is going to run vertically with that tight end. So in this scenario, you're going to get a pretty open player when it's first and 20 off of a holding call, that they're able to convert or get 17, 18, 19 yards by beating Newsome back inside. This is a pretty consistent theme that the quarterback knew where to go with it. First read stuff was open. Now, Malik Neighbors is a problem, but again, this is 2 tight end stuff. So if they get the Browns with 3 linebackers on the field, they know that the Browns are going to get pretty aggressive. So when they get pretty aggressive like this, I think that there's obviously a tendency to take advantage of that in screen game stuff. So watch how they react to the flat motion, watch how they react to the offensive line, and then it's just about literally dropping it off because, hey, we know if we get the Browns into 3 linebacker looks, we're not going to have much of a problem being able to get them to play aggressive downhill against the run. They know how those guys play against the run. And again, just dressing it up with motion, you can watch the impact it has on the 2 linebackers who are your fallback guys. If this football is to be caught up in the other side of things, like the Browns blow up a lot of screens from gun because linebacker like JOK is so quick to trigger to the back. But watch how this looking like run for a split second gets JOK to pause and move and Hicks to climb forward, and then you have all the angles you need to hit a screen for a big play because you're taking advantage of their aggression from under center, right? Next play here is, I believe it's a fire zone look, so you're going to get 4 off of a side, and they understand what the Browns like to do with coverage. They understand that they like to play variations of cover 2, and if we use a flat motion to take advantage of how they like to play cover 2 with these 2 deep defenders, it gives us an opportunity to put a horizontal stretch in place on the 5 underneath, and then it's just a matter of identifying who the 5th guy underneath is. We know if we run this motion route here to rail route up the sideline, it's going to take this player right here at the bottom of the screen, Grant Delpit, widening to expand. Denzel Ward will run to the middle of the field. As you'll see, that's the rotation. They know the Browns like to play that funky cover 2, even though they're in 1 high. And then they're going to wheel out down here at the bottom of the screen, Alex Wright into the underneath coverage as they bring 4 off of a side. And then it's just about, hey, identify where you can go. Like, there's your 5 under 2 deep. And then it's identifying what Grant Delpit does. Does Delpit widen with the route up the sideline off that motion? If he does, then we're just going to pick on what happens around it, which is a defensive end dropping into space. And then it's like, oh, okay, we'll just find Malik Neighbors kind of working away from him. And it's pitch and catch. It doesn't get any easier, right? So they know the Browns like to bring their rush stuff from the field side, the wide side of the field. And they took advantage of it several different times in this game. Down here on the goal line, I think you're going to get Malik Neighbors going in motion. This is just about, hey, we want to get Malik matched up with a player that doesn't defend him very well. So they get Neighbors matched up with Martin Emerson at the top of the screen. At that point, it's just Neighbors, who's a shifty player, tough to cover in space against a guy who is, of the 3 corners the Browns have, not good against that type of athlete. And we can just, win inside with the post and then spin it back out to the corner. And, Emerson isn't even in the ballpark of making a play on the football. So identifying matchups that they thought they could get. Another one, Greg Newsome in the slot. This is man coverage. Walk down in their face. There's nothing hidden about this man coverage that's happening. Even see JOK at the bottom of the screen running out to cover the running back. That's the biggest indicator that it's man coverage, when linebackers run out and cover running backs, because that's the matchup you prefer. You don't want linebackers on speedy receivers inside. But then it's like, these guys don't want you to get outside, but Malik Neighbors is fast enough. As the Giants love this young player, great young wide receiver. Let's just put him in the slot and let him run past people. Shifty, he's got great acceleration. That should have been a big play. That's the second half where everybody kind of has this idea the Browns shut the Giants down. If they just throw that and catch it, it's an easy opportunity to pick up 40 yards, 30, 40 yards there. Again, man coverage look, because JOK is telling you it's man coverage as he runs out to the sideline to cover the running back. Let's just run slant flat, just call it dragon back in the day is the name for it, and let's make these 2 exchange these routes off. Doesn't happen the way it's supposed to, quick enough at least, as the Browns are playing off man. And I mean, that's as open in the NFL as it gets. You're getting 10 yards after the catch for a big play. And then I think with the last one we have here is, again, Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot on the top of the screen against Newsome again. Again, you're getting man coverage indicators all over the place. Walk down corner, single high safety, and then it's just like, let's identify this hole in coverage. Like, we're going to 2 wide receivers between Robinson and Neighbors that we want to pick on Browns DBs against, to watch him work upfield, accelerate, win inside. And there's nobody. The Browns go with 0 blitz. They get hyper aggressive, even bring that deep safety on a blitz, and Robinson's wide open. I mean, that's a catch and run for 20 yards, maybe break a tackle. It's a touchdown. Daniel Jones just missed it. But like, the Giants had opportunities, man. They knew the principles by which the Browns defense lives by. They picked on them, identified them, and put themselves into a bunch of really good situations. And it remains a concern that the Browns defense doesn't have more tendency breaking concepts, more look like something before the snap, change it post snap. It's the single biggest concern around what Jim Schwartz is doing with this defense. Is like, they have an abundance of talent, but they're just letting the talent win instead of using some coaching strategies to help out that talent in a way that I think is starting to become necessary. It can only take you so far. They need to be more diverse.
As always, great stuff, Jake. Again, if people want to see more of this, where can they find you? And again, really good film breakdowns.
Yeah, appreciate that. So we're at brownsfilmbreakdown.com, which has an app that's built off of that for video work, everything we're doing, podcasts every day. So we've been doing a daily podcast for years, and then obviously adding in the elements of the film and the written content is all in play too. So we're really happy with how the launch has gone. We've built a pretty good community of people who are pretty passionate about the Cleveland Browns. So that's been great. And then we're on all the socials, including Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, all that stuff too, doing work as well. So you can find Browns Film Breakdown pretty much anywhere.
Appreciate it. As always, great stuff, Jake. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Jake Burns, make sure you check him out. Always really insightful and a good technical stuff. If you love X's and O's, he's a great guy. BrownsFilmBreakdown.com is where you can find him. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.